Hello everyone. So I wanted to give a public service announcement based on some concerning things that I've seen online. I think we're all starting to come a little bit more aware of issues in citation practices online that we've seen in the last few months. But something that I've observed that concerns me is the use of Chatgpt in political discussion. For example, in a Discord server, I suggested to someone to read Everybody Wants to Be a Fascist by Felix Guattari, an essay that's basically about how fascism emerges from micropolitical and macropolitical movements of desire, and is a critique of leftist movements that are overly authoritarian. I know, I really just need to make a video on this essay, but I've been pretty depressed lately and inactive.
Do you know what month it is?
Fuck you, it's January!
But this person responded by saying they produced a Chatgpt summary of the text and attempted to use it as a means to dismiss the text entirely. Even my faint memory of the text from a few months ago is not this inaccurate. This immediately concerned me for a lot of reasons. Nobody should be using a chatbot to summarize a political text. To be honest, I was a lot more concerned about this Chatgpt approach to politics than anything else that they were actually saying. So let's talk about why we don't use Chatgpt to summarize political texts, and why it's probably a bad idea in general. First, let's analyze the context of the text a little. Felix Guattari wasn't just writing because he felt like it, he was politically motivated to write the text, which is obvious when he says at the beginning of the essay that he asks, "Isn't it a good idea to discuss fascism freely while we still can?" He was first and foremost a human being who was reacting to real political pressures of his time, commenting and critiquing how they were formed and structured. This is because he was a part of a real-world politics that grounded his activity. Likewise, people like you and me are also politically motivated, but in a different way, because of how media has changed our relation to politics in the last 60 years. Nowadays, many people engage politically through the internet, which, while not being part of the real world directly, allows for the rapid transmission of political ideas. Because of this, many of us are somewhat politically alienated from our battles in comparison to the battles in the 1960s, because we are interacting with a sort of simulation of politics most of the time instead of direct action. Still though, we are politically motivated even if our politics is often simulated. What makes you and me different from Chatgpt is that Chatgpt has no political stakes. It doesn't formulate its opinion or position based on anything that actually matters to itself. It's just a computer that cares about passing as a convincing language model. It summarizes a bunch of information that it found on the internet in a way that sounds intelligible. But because it has no political stakes, it has no reason to summarize that information in a useful way. The political framing is a generalization of what it observed on the internet, nothing more, and it can easily be framed by what data that it reads instead of formulating its own opinion. Chatgpt is not sentient, it doesn't have feelings, it doesn't have an experience that resembles anything that a human experiences, it has no investment in you actually understanding the contents of these essays. It doesn't even understand the contents of these essays itself. Basically, none of the contents of what Chatgpt is talking about really matters to Chatgpt, because Chatgpt has no real material stakes in most things that it's talking about. Chatgpt makes many mistakes on many subjects, and its high failure rate means that its results are unreliable. For example, in the case of Felix Guattari, most developments in English about his works have occurred in the last 15 years. And most of which is relatively obscure to the public. You really can't understand Guattari by simply reading about him on the internet. You really need to engage with his work and secondary works written about him to better understand his position. Because of this, Chatgpt doesn't seem to understand Guattari very well. Even if we trained the AI model on every text we could by Guattari, the subjects that he talks about, schizophrenia, politics, psychoanalysis, cinema, minorities, etc., are all subjects that are fundamentally meaningless to a language model with no material connection to these experiences, and for this reason has no motivation to be politically invested in anything. Do you really want to have your politics shaped by a being that has no stakes in these battles? Or do you want to have your politics shaped by people, past, present, and future, who are engaged directly with your struggles? Remember, at the end of the day, it's a lot better to glance through the actual text of a work and understand part of it and admit to your own limitations than it is to ask a chat robot who doesn't really care about any of these issues and understand none of it. So yeah, don't do this, and just try reading what you can. Even a little bit is better than nothing, and it's a lot better than what a chatbot can tell you. Let an author's original words captivate you and mean something to you instead of trying to use them as a means to winning political Pokemon battles online.